In this video, I want to cover everything you need to know about dash cams, including why you need one, what one to pick, or at least how to find the right one for you, how to install it, and a few extra things that are worth knowing. So let's jump right into it. Having a dash cam is an absolute must these days, and for a number of reasons, the most obvious of which is if you get into an accident, whether it's your fault or not, more importantly, if it's not your fault, you have video evidence of what happened. Exactly. There's no he said, she said type accounts. It is very much, this is what happened, here's the evidence, and especially if the other party decides to tell their insurance that it was your fault, you can submit that proof to your insurance company to save you a whole load of cash. On top of that, if there is any police involvement, especially if it was a more serious incident, again, having that video evidence of exactly what happened can save you from possible convictions too. When it comes to getting the right one for you, there are a couple of things that you should know. While you can go and buy one from a store like Halfords in the UK and even have them fit it for you, it is worth knowing that that isn't necessarily the best value for money. It can be one of the easiest ways to go about doing it though. Of course, with the prices for the cameras themselves, they're often slightly higher than if you just go and buy often the exact same cameras, but from a third-party source, say Amazon. But it would also be worth knowing that they charge £50 to install just a front-facing camera, or £70 to install a front and a rear-facing camera together. That is a little on the expensive side, especially when you're also paying £100, £200+ for the dash cams themselves. So bear that in mind. You can definitely get perfectly adequate cameras on somewhere like Amazon, which of course there'll be some Amazon affiliate links in the description if you want to check those out, for more like £30 to £50, and fit them yourself for literally nothing. When picking up a dash cam, there are a couple of things that you should be aware of. Of course, the camera configurations, like I mentioned, front and rear are quite common. The most common is just front only. It's the easiest one to set up, it's the easiest one for you to install yourself, and it still gives you a good idea of what happened. Even for a rear end collision where you're stationary and the person runs into the back of you, you still have video evidence that you were stationary, you didn't do anything erratic like brake check them and slam your brakes on in front of them. You were just minding your own business and they ran into the back of you. You still have evidence for that. Of course, you don't have, say, direct evidence from the back of them on their phone or something like that, but it's still good enough for most cases. It's what I have personally and what my wife has as well, and it's like I said, it's the easiest one to install yourself. If you do want to go the extra mile, you can get a rear-facing camera as well, and if you want to be really crazy, you can also get a triple camera setup, which is front, interior, and rear-facing. Personally, I would argue that the interior cameras are not something that are of great benefit. It encourages you to place the camera in a less ideal position. And I also personally just wouldn't want a camera filming me while I'm driving 24/7, so maybe leave that one out. Of course, it's up to you. You can do as you please. One of the other main factors you'll see on all of the listings is the camera's resolution and frame rate. It's normally 1080p30 or 1080p60, but sometimes you can see either 720p or 1440p or even 4K. Personally, 1080p30 or 60 is what I would aim for. It is worth noting that even though it may say 1080p30 or 60, the actual quality you get out at the end might not be, or two 1080p30 cameras aren't necessarily equal, but it's generally a good idea to stick to that. I would argue 720p isn't quite enough, and something like 1440p or 4K, unless you're going for the sort of cinematic driving experience to capture some footage of your trip, for example, then it's probably not worth splashing the extra cash, and often, especially on the cheaper sort of 4K ones, they're just terrible. So maybe stick with the more standard ones instead. It is also worth noting that there are a whole load of other features that you can get as well. Things like GPS tracking. Most of them do have batteries built in so that you can have sort of automatic detection. If someone hits your car while it's parked, it can still record that incident, or at very least the aftermath, depending. But you can also get extra fancy things as well, although I would argue that for the vast majority of people, most of those fancy additions aren't actually going to be useful to you, and so it's probably worth just spending less or spending the same amount of money but getting a better setup, whether that's dual cameras or whether that's just a better quality. It's up to you, of course, it's your money, but that would be my personal preference. The final note on purchasing, you will likely need to pick up a micro SD card along with your dash cam. You can pick up a number of different options, but most of the dash cams, especially the cheaper ones, only support up to 32 gigabytes SD cards, and that isn't all that much. You will be overwriting that quite regularly, especially at 1080p 60 or even higher, although some of the fancier ones can support up to, say, 128 gigabytes, which is a little bit better. It is worth also noting that there are specialized high-endurance SD cards, like the SanDisk one, which might be a better option for you to pick up, as that has better write endurance. It means that you can write to the card more for longer endurance, you can write more to it without it failing, and so again, that's likely a good choice as well. As for the installation, the single most important point I want to get across here is do not mount it in your direct driver's field of view. That is a terrible idea, and you can actually get an MOT failure if it's too in your way, or at very least an advisory. My ideal location for mounting it is behind your rear view mirror, to the passenger's side. It's completely out of the way there. I actually can't see it from the driver's position, which is actually ideal, and it means that I have a completely unobstructed field of view out of the front of the car, and it also means that it's nice and neatly tucked away. It's up high, so it has a great field of view out as well, the best visibility, and that's just the best place for it. So please mount it up there and not like dangling right in front of you, your windscreen where you can clearly see it. Tuck it out of the way and it'll be much better. As for wiring, you kind of have two options there, permanent or temporary. I've always gone down the temporary route, as I generally don't like modifying cars to the point where I can't put them back to their original state again. And so for that, you generally end up just powering it with a USB adapter in your 12-volt sockets. In my case, I ran the wiring along the headlining, which is nice and easy to do. You just tuck it in gently and it's all good. And then I ran it down my A-pillar, my sort of front pillar here, so that it actually sits behind the paneling. In most cases you can just tuck it in there, although sometimes you might want some tools like some trim tools to be able to pop that paneling off and then nicely route it all down. In my case, I didn't need to, just tucked it in. I did end up using my trim tools to pop out the fuse panel on the passenger side so that I could neatly route it under the glove box. It then comes out of the bottom of the glove box and along the center console, and then plugs in just behind, well, the center console into the 12-volt socket that's back there, which is nice and neat, keeps it out of the way. Also gives me an extra USB plug to be able to charge any passengers' phones. And so that's my routing. In general, you can, like I said, just push it all in. If you want to mount a rear camera, by the way, you'll need to run 2 wires from your main sort of hub dash cam in the center, and you'll want to run those generally along the side sills at the bottom of your door frame. Again, either removing panels or just tucking it in. Run it up your rear wheel arch and sort of under your back seat, and then along up the back, the rear pillar, the C pillar, and along the head lining, and then to the center dash cam when you stick that one on. It's often a much smaller unit and sometimes lower resolution as well, but it is only a single wire that comes out of it, so nice and easy to route. Alternatively, if you don't want to push the wiring through, into your paneling, you can often use the included sort of adhesive clips. It's not quite as neat, it's not quite as nice and pretty and stealthed, but it does work just fine, and I suppose is even less sort of in the way of, or I suppose even less of modifying the car in terms of pushing and prodding things and potentially breaking your plastic paneling. If you do want to hardwire it, that's probably out of the scope of this video, as I don't want to give any incorrect advice. It's probably best to let a professional hardwire it if you're going to go down that route. But if you are going to do it yourself, just make sure that you use a fuse to fuse that connection, and that you do not run it off of your constant power. You run it off of the accessory power, the switched 12 volt, rather than the always live 12 volts, as you do not want to come back to a dead car because your dash cam has been running 24/7. Finally, the last thing I want to mention about dash cams is that, at least here in the UK, the police have the power to seize any footage recorded from your dash cam, any footage that's inside the vehicle. And so if you are in a, if the police have a reason to stop you and search your vehicle, whether that's because they have, pulled you over or because you've been in an accident, it is worth knowing that they do have the power to seize that and, examine the footage without having to ask you for it or get any sort of warrants or anything like that. It is worth knowing that. So, if you are doing something stupid, be warned. With that said, that is a little sort of beginner's guide to dash cams. If you have any questions or things that I missed, suggestions for things that people should know, feel free to leave those in the comments down below. If you want to see more videos like this one from me, or a whole load of other stuff, including full car reviews and first drive videos, more sort of tutorials on how to fix parts of your car, all that sort of stuff, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell notification icon. You can also check out some more videos on the end cards. Like I said, if you want to check out any of the dash cams that I sort of recommend, or that are Amazon's top picks at the moment, you can check that out in the links in the description. Otherwise, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it, we'll see you on the next video.